Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining this masterclass on leading with or leading alongside artificial intelligence. So we have about 55, 60 minutes today, and we'll try and cover as much as possible. So really happy that you're all here. So let me just quickly share my screen. So can someone confirm whether they are able to see my screen? Okay, so let's get started. So before we start, I think you probably have the question that, why is it that I'm qualified to talk about this particular topic? And so I'd like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Mukesh Gupta. I'm the author of 3 books, Your Startup Mentor, Thrive, and Being Happy. I also host a podcast called Pushing Beyond the Obvious. Now, the most relevant topic here for us is kind of my book Thrive. I wrote this book about 4.5, 5 years back. The book is all about mindsets and skill sets that we need to do. We need to, succeed really well in a world dominated by smart machines and intelligent algorithms. So when I wrote this book, I did not realize that the time for the application of what I had written in that book would come so soon. That AI would become such a major force in our lives in just the few years that since past since. But having said that, I think we are here. So let's get moving. Yeah. So in any new learning environment, I think Bernice McCarthy she created this format model, which is super important when it comes to learning, specifically for adult learning. So we need to know why we are learning something. We need to know what are we learning, which is in terms of start thinking about and understanding what's happening. Then we need to understand the how of the skills in terms of nitty-gritties of the skills that we need to learn and practice. And we also need to understand what if, which is um, how can we apply whatever we've learned in a way that can actually help us move forward significantly improved. And what if we do not apply and what the consequences are in that case as well. So today, what we will be doing is covering the why and probably a little bit of what, because in the limited number of time, that's all we can do. And I'll also share next steps in terms of, how do we go from here to actually understanding the nitty-gritties of what we need to do, and also to cover the what if post that. So first questions first, why should you care about what's happening in the world? Why should you care about artificial intelligence? Why should you care about um, leading alongside artificial intelligence? Now, I'm sure there is none of you here on this call, or for those, for that matter, people listening to the recording of this session, who has not come across ChatGPT or some other form of artificial intelligence that has been in the current zeitgeist for the last maybe 3 to 6 months. Now, while artificial intelligence has been around for decades, I think the first mention of artificial intelligence started before the World War or during the World War. So it's just 1940s. So we are almost practically 75 plus years in when we are talking about artificial intelligence. But the past few years, specifically the past 4, 5 years, I think have been watershed years for as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. There have been much progress made. I think right from the IBM Blue beating the chess master, and then beating Go, and then Google beating Go masters. Now, I think we are in a position where almost every organization that you can think of is deploying some form or other of artificial intelligence within their organization. There are multiple types of artificial intelligence. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But some form of artificial intelligence is already being deployed in almost any significant organization that we can think of. Not only that, I think AI has been pervasive all around us as individuals as well. So we may or may not realize the impact that artificial intelligence is having on our lives, but it is now prevalent all around us. In fact, if you are living in countries like Japan and some of the other countries where the population is aging a lot more, or aging population is a lot more in terms of percentage of overall population, you'll find that people are more comfortable talking to bots, which in the back end run machine learning and algorithms and kind of have a ability to have a conversation with you. There is a TikTok channel which is completely all about a robot which is actually using AI to sell. There is AI infused in enterprise applications as well. So yeah, so artificial intelligence is everywhere. Specifically with the hype that has come with ChatGPT and its successors, GPT-4, or whether it is Google Bard, whether it is Adobe's new AI, whether it is the other generative AI models for video, for image. TikTok is full of that, right? So you go to TikTok and you'll find that there are many apps which have been created where there is a particular frame and you just click a picture of yours and you get morphed into that frame. Again, all of that through artificial intelligence. The entire algorithm that is running is based on machine learning and artificial intelligence as well. So my point is, you cannot escape from artificial intelligence in our lives. Now, more so when it comes to us and our role as leaders. Now, as leaders, we are responsible for more or less three things, to be precise. So first and foremost is for us to be responsible for delivering the results that we are expected to deliver in a manner that reduces cost and increases profit. We are supposed to take care of the people whom we lead and help them achieve whatever it is that they are trying to achieve in the process of us achieving our results as an organization or as a team. And last but not the least, to continually improve ourselves to be better leader as we go along day in, day out. So today's content is going to be about the third one, to be precise, and we'll touch a little bit about how can we also look at the other two responsibilities of us as leaders as well. So before we actually move on into how do you integrate artificial intelligence into your life, into your leadership practice, I think it is important for us to understand what artificial intelligence is and how does it differ from human intelligence, because ultimately we will be working in an environment where we will be leading both people as well as AI. We will be working alongside AI as we go along. So we need to, number one, understand what these capabilities are that humans bring to the table, what are the capabilities that algorithms and machines bring to the table, and marry them together in a way that ensures the highest performance, the highest satisfaction for our people, and at the same time, highest effectiveness for us as leaders. So let's just quickly look at some of these as we go along, right? So if you actually look at human intelligence, I think if you leave out spiritual, which probably is not necessarily relevant from a professional point of view, human intelligence consists of three kinds of intelligence, right? So one is empathetic intelligence, which means that We are capable of being empathetic to others, understanding what others are feeling, what others want to do, what others want to achieve, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and things like that. So empathy is a core intelligence. Then, of course, we have intellectual intelligence, which is um, IQ, which means that over a period of time we learn new stuff and we intellectually grow as a person. And a lot of what we learn, what we experience, is actually stored in our brains as intelligence, and mostly as intellectual intelligence. Last but not the least, we have creative intelligence. What do I mean by creative intelligence? Is our unique ability to make leaps and come up with creative solutions for problems we did not even know existed, right? So the entire progress that we've made as humanity can be attributed to all three of these things coming together. The understanding what we need as a species. This is not just me, but everyone else. Learning from what we have experienced in the past and what we are continuously learning through our experience. And so that's the intellectual. Combining all of that and coming up with creative solutions or creative ideas, which make our survival and our growth as a species significantly faster than any other species on this world. So that's what the human intelligence is all about, right? So when it comes to artificial intelligence, I think there are three kinds of artificial intelligence that people generally talk about. The oldest form is predictive, which means that now you give a specific data set to an algorithm that has been trained on a particular data set, and what it can do is based on past patterns or past behavior. It can predict, what comes next. This is the most foundational or fundamental artificial intelligence that we can think of. Almost every organization today, or every enterprise application, software applications today, more or less has some form of predictive intelligence inbuilt, or is building it within their applications. So that's probably the most primitive. Generative is an extension of that. What it does is it takes not just numbers. So predictive, when I say predictive, it's primarily numbers, stats. It uses statistical model to kind of predict what comes. If the same pattern continues, what happens next. Generative goes a little bit beyond that. What it does is it also can look at text. It can look at images, and by combining images, it can also make videos based on prompts that we give to the artificial intelligence. So which means that when we give a prompt, it understands what the prompt is, and based on that, it starts generating a new material. Sometimes the material is good, sometimes it's not. But predominantly speaking, this is the generation of ChatGPT and all the other generative AI applications that are flooding the market right now, right? Whether it is creating images, whether it is creating videos, whether it is creating text, whether it is using the generative AI to generate prompts, which can then be used to generate text, images, and videos as well. So that's the second kind of AI which we can talk about. The third one is adaptive, which is when you bring in people and the other two kinds of AI together, and the AI is able to adapt to the prompts that we are giving, and based on reinforcement learning through the people telling that whether what results it is showing is right or wrong, or needs to improve. So as the AI interacts with people, and it kind of continuously improves based on the feedback that it gets from people, not necessarily from the data that it works with, and that AI is adaptive in nature. This is probably the least used AI right now, but it is gaining popularity and gaining um, prominence as well because of the simple fact that the amount of funding that this field is getting is just enormous. And with the computing power and memory power increasing exponentially for the last so many decades, it is becoming more and more possible to create adaptive AI as well. So fundamentally, this is the difference between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. Now let's look at a few of the derivatives of what this means for us as leaders, right? So that we need to understand when it comes to what are humans capable of and what is artificial intelligence capable of, what are their unique strengths for us to leverage as leaders. So first and foremost, both kinds of intelligence, both human and artificial intelligence, is all about matching or recognizing patterns. Human brain is a pattern matching machine. It is said that the way human brain works is based on the context that we are in. It creates an image of what it expects to see. Then the data that comes from what we actually see and sense from all our senses gets matched to that pattern. And the only thing that we then recognize or give our attention to is anything that does not match that specific pattern, so which stands out. So human intelligence is all about experience. Based on your experience, past experience, you have a clearly defined pattern that you expect of the world, and when it doesn't, it pops up as something that we need to give attention towards. And it is also all about connections, right? So connections based on our past experience. Whereas when it comes to artificial intelligence, the entire thing is about content and the connections between those content. So for example, I mean, all artificial intelligence is trained on data, which is nothing but content. And depending upon the content on which it is trained, it can then recognize patterns and identify connections that were hitherto unknown for us as human beings. And the ability to do so in a large data set is what differentiates artificial intelligence versus humans. So anything that is in the real world that we want to kind of pay attention to, human intelligence is better. Anything within the data that we need to identify connections to, I think AI is way better. So from an awareness point of view, I think humans are more context aware. As I said, I mean, we are aware of the context that we are in, irrespective of which context it is. Even if you put a human in a completely new context, which is, let's say, for example, you travel to a new city where you've never been to, or a part of the city where you live but you've never been to, you can still be aware of what is expected to be in that context. So your brain is able to create a model irrespective of whether or not you've had past experience of living in that particular or being in that particular context. And therefore, humans are a lot more context aware. Whereas AI is a lot more data aware, given, right? So because they're primarily trained on data, they're a lot more data aware. A lot of times, the challenge with artificial intelligence is also that, if you are not able to identify the context in which the data has been created or generated, that could lead to potential biases. And that is where, if you are able to bring in the context awareness of humans and the data awareness of AI together, you get a more complete picture of the scenario of the scene that you are faced with, and then based on which you can then decide and take whatever actions that you need to take as leaders. Now, coming to insights. So human insights can come from creative leaps, from imagination, from completely something that we have never experienced. We can imagine that, and therefore we can make creative leaps. Do we do that often enough? Do we do that regularly? Not necessarily, but it is a possibility. The more we do this, the more we learn to take creative leaps, the better we get it. Whereas all insights coming from artificial intelligence is based on connections that it finds in data, statistically significant connections that it finds in data. Again, it may be pretty simple and straightforward that everything with respect to AI is about data. But the reason why I'm bringing out this distinction and why it is important for us to learn and be conscious of these differences between what humans are capable of and what AI is capable of in certain contexts, because that's how we learn and that's how we keep things in mind, right? So that's why I'm reiterating the data part. Both humans and artificial intelligence are biased simply because of the fact that AI algorithms are also in the end written by humans to start with. Of course, they can continue to write and improve themselves, but the initial seed is from humans. So whatever bias was there within humans who wrote the initial algorithm could potentially remain hidden deep within the algorithm itself. Whereas human bias is hidden in plain sight. A lot of times we can actually see and tell whether a particular person is biased towards something or someone or not, right? So it's hidden within the person, but also is in plain sight for others to see and notice if we were to want to notice, right? So that's the key there. So bias exists irrespective of where you go. As long as we are able to notice the bias and take that into account, we are good. So humans are driven by a purpose, right? Why do I need to do this? Why should I do this? Why should I not do this? What happens if I don't do this? These are all questions which are important for humans to be answered. That's also the reason why there is this entire movement of purpose-led organizations and purpose-led leadership all around us, because ultimately humans are motivated and driven by purpose and what matters to them as individuals. Whereas AI is driven by whatever the creator of that particular AI was motivated for. So usually what this means is that a lot of times the artificial intelligence is very specific to a very specific task or to a very specific functionality. So for example, if there is a enterprise application, let's say a sales, a CRM, and there is a artificial intelligence embedded within the CRM application, and it is primarily for forecasting based on past sales data, based on weather data, based on market conditions. The algorithm can probably predict what the sales could potentially be. So that's the only purpose that it has, which means it's a singular purpose. Same with ChatGPT, it's a very singular purpose. You give a prompt, it'll answer. You want to have a conversation, it'll have and for every question, it'll give a textual answer. Same thing with a image processing or image creating generative AI. It'll only create image based on the prompt that you give. So it's singular in purpose, whereas humans can be multi-purpose, which means that as individuals we have multiple different purposes that could potentially drive us and motivate us in personal life, in professional life. We can be multi-purpose. Under conditions of uncertainty, humans are really good because of the simple fact that we are context aware, and because of everything else that we spoke about before. Human intelligence is really, really great under conditions of uncertainty. whereas artificial intelligence is really, really great under conditions of certainty. What do I mean by conditions of certainty? Is that there is no ambiguity in terms of the questions that are being asked. So the more ambiguous the question, the more ambiguous the answer, and the less useful the answer, if I may say so. As long as we know exactly what we want, exactly what we ask for, AI or machines or algorithms are really good at answering those questions. Whereas humans are really good at answering questions that are very, very vague in nature, or when you put them in conditions of uncertainty. So in terms of cognitive load, I think the more data we give to AI, the better it functions, as long as the data is relevant and is used to train the AI algorithm. Whereas humans can't function well when put under significant cognitive overload. What this means is that if you have to crunch a lot of information, if you have a lot to process, humans are not as good as processing a lot. So if you follow the literature, it is very well known fact that humans can't multitask. Neither can machines, but the switching cost that humans have vis-a-vis machines have is vastly different. So humans, the switching cost is really high. There is only a limited amount of data that we can store in memory and process, whereas algorithms can store a massive amount of data in memory and process them, and at the same time can do parallel processing across processors coming together. We have not learned how to do that en masse with other humans yet. Hopefully, that's something that we will learn as we go along in this journey, where more and more artificial intelligence is going to be fused within our lives. Now, next is machines or algorithms are always on, which means that they're always available, whereas humans need rest. So at most, what you can look at is 4 hours of extremely productive time in 24 hours is considered to be really good. If you can push it up to 6 hours, you are like one of the highest performers that you will have in your circles. And if you can do that to 8 hours of productive time, and you are already in the top 1 percentile of people in the world. And even then, you still need rest, right? So unless you rest, your the body, the toxins and the chemicals that the body creates when you're at peak performance needs to be flushed out, and that is one of the reasons why you need rest. Whereas machines do not need that, at least not yet. Last but not the least, I think it's easier and cheaper to train humans. It's more difficult and more expensive to train AI because the data needs to be clean. The data needs to be in a particular format or in a particular, the data sets need to be really, really huge. Computing power needs to be really huge. So training an AI specifically for each one of our purposes probably will be too difficult to do and too expensive to do as well. Whereas humans, comparatively a lot more cheaper and easier to train them. Both AI and humans are judgmental in their own ways. Humans are judgmental in unique ways. The same person may be judgmental about a particular thing in a given context, whereas in a different context may not necessarily be. Whereas AI or algorithm is judgmental in the same way, irrespective of which context you put it into. Understanding this is super important for us as leaders. Now that we have understood what human intelligence is all about, what artificial intelligence is all about, what are some of the differences, strengths and weaknesses when it comes to deploying human and artificial intelligence from a leadership perspective. Let's understand leadership itself. right? So what does leadership mean? There have been a lot of conversations, a lot of different models of leadership that have been proposed, and servant leadership is one, purpose-led leadership is one, principle-centered leadership is one. I mean, these are all concepts and models that have been created and shared and are pretty popular. So I have created a model for leadership as well, specifically for leading in times of uncertainty and times of chaos, in times where change is ever present and is accelerating at a pace which we've never seen before, right? So I call this the butterfly model of leadership. Constitutes of 7 different components. So if you actually look at it, the most fundamental and foundational is self-awareness, which is what is it that we want to achieve as leaders? What is it that we are good at? What is it that we are not good at? Where are our biases? And what can we do in order to mitigate those biases? So all of these kind of questions that we need to know about ourselves is foundational and is all about self-awareness. Social awareness is again fundamental, because ultimately we are leading people. And if you do not understand the social context or the social awareness of the people that we are leading, what their motivations are, what drives them, what are some of their challenges, what are some of the things that they're good at, what are some of the things that they need help with, and all of that, right? So what is being said behind you, what's being said in front of you, what's being left unsaid, all of that kind of constitutes social awareness, the political alignments that are happening within the organization, and the social context within which the organization itself is operating under. All of that forms social awareness. It is super important for us to be socially aware and self-aware. So once we are aware of what we are trying to achieve and in which environment we are trying to achieve this in, we need to kind of bring the right mindsets to the game. I've identified 9 different types of mindsets that we can bring to the table when it comes to leadership. So one is a yes and mindset, which is all about acceptance. One is a philosopher's mindset, which is all about perspective. One is an actor's mindset, which is all about observation. One's a designer's mindset, which is all about exploration. One's an entrepreneur's mindset, which is all about risk mitigation. One is a scientist's mindset, which is all about experimentation. One's a toddler's mindset, which is all about perseverance. One's an athlete's mindset, which is all about practice. And one is a systems mindset, which is all about emergence. Depending upon the awareness, our self-awareness and the social awareness, we need to identify which is the right mindset that we want to bring in to the frame in order to be able to make the most out of the current situation, right? So then comes the entire conversation around skill sets. So this is where we are talking about the ability to facilitate, the ability to set a vision, the ability to problem solve, the ability to think creatively, the ability to frame and reframe problems, the ability to collaborate, the ability to influence. So all of these are skills that we need to have practiced over a period of time. And depending upon the situation, the social awareness that we have of the situation, the self-awareness that we bring in terms of what we want to achieve, the mindset that we bring in, the right skill set needs to be brought in. And once we have all of these things, we need to also do a little bit of sense making, which is understanding how all of these can come together to make the best out of the current situation that we are in right now. And decide. Sense making is all about decision. Once we have all of these things coming together, all these ingredients coming together, we kind of make sense and decide what we need to do, which is all about action, and what do we need to communicate, which is all about communication. Now, if you actually want to look at actions, I think there are 6 ways we can typically act. So we can either act as a mentor, which is we share our experience with people whom we lead. We can act as a friend, where we cheerlead our team and the people that we lead, so that they can go ahead and do whatever needs to be done. We can act as a coach, by helping ask questions to our people, so that they can do self-reflection and grow as individuals, and kind of communicate this entire model for them, so that they can start doing this by themselves. So we can actually act as a teacher, which is we teach them how to do a specific thing and also learn with them based on the response that we get. We can be a mechanic for them, which is we do certain things for them. Or we can be a midwife, which means that we do things, we work with them, but get them to do the things. So we are there for moral support, for ensuring that if there is anything that goes wrong, we are there to take care. But at the same time, all the work is being done by the team. Right. So these are 6 ways in which we can bring in action. And then, of course, communication. Right. So 2 forms of communication: written and oral, and 3 ways to communicate. So do you want to, from an intent point of view, do you want to inform, do you want to influence, or do you want to inspire? Depending, and do you want to do all of these things in a written format or in a oral or speech format? Depending upon which format you are using and the purpose of your communication, I think the different mindsets and skill sets will come into play. And so that's probably the model that I'm talking about. So you become self-aware in terms of what you want to achieve in a given situation, socially aware in terms of in which context are you working to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. What are the people around you looking for? What do they want to achieve? How do you align what you want to achieve from an organization perspective and from your personal perspective with everyone else around you? You bring in the right mindsets, you bring in the right skill sets, make sense of everything, and decide whether you want to communicate or whether you want to act or whether you want to do both. And if you want to communicate, what is it that you want to communicate? How do you want to communicate? Whether you want to act, so how do you want to act? In what role do you want to act as? So, and given that this is the leadership landscape or a leadership model that I'm talking about, you can infuse AI in almost 3 or 4 levels, right? So you can bring in AI elements in terms of sense making. You can bring in AI elements when it comes to communication. You can bring in AI elements with regards to skills, because that's one of the tools that one of the skills that we get better and better at. And of course, last but not the least, we can also bring in or infuse certain elements of AI when it comes to the actions that we want to take or the decisions that we want to take. Now, I also want to quickly share, if we were to use the same model and think of this from an artificial intelligence perspective, what does that mean? Right? So you need to ensure that there is the right kind of training data that is being used, or you need to understand the training data that has been used in order to build the AI algorithm. You need to also understand the context within which the data was created, which was used for training. So you also need to understand what potential bias could be there within the algorithm. You need to understand how do you deploy these algorithms, what are the security concerns, what are some of the technological concerns or constraints that could potentially be there in order for you to deploy the algorithms within your work environment. Allow the AI to make sense of all the data and propose some of the decisions, and which then you can decide, pick and choose which ones you want to follow and which ones you do not want to, and which ones you want to edit or amend before you agree and follow. And in some cases, You can also just simply allow the AI to take decisions and act on your behalf when you are pretty confident about the results and the data that leads to those results. So I kind of overlaid what as leaders we do and how we can deploy artificial intelligence in our work as leaders. Having said all of this, right? So I think one of the more important things that we also need to understand is simply the fact that um, AI also brings in a lot of fear amongst our teams that we lead. So it is super important that we have conversations with our team about the purpose of deploying the artificial intelligence within our organizations. Um, we also need to be willing to um, address any fears that might be there amongst our people about what impact it will have on their employability and things like that. We also need to train people on how to use and leverage artificial intelligence. We need to train people, and ourselves included, about everything that is happening in the world of AI. It's changing really, really fast, so very difficult to keep up. But it is important to try and keep up as much as possible, so that we are making decisions about when to deploy which AI algorithm and for what purpose. Not just us as leaders, but also our team members understand the need for deploying a particular kind of algorithm for a particular kind of purpose, and how that makes their jobs easier, simpler, faster, and make them more relevant rather than make them irrelevant. So it is also quite possible that some of the people that we lead may not be either willing or are unable to keep up with the technological pace that AI is moving at. So we need to have a conscious decision and discussion with those people and figure out where can we redeploy them in terms of leveraging their human intelligence rather than just plainly looking at AI as a cost-saving mechanism and kind of laying people off. Ultimately, I think it is important that we take care of our people that we lead and do not leave them by the wayside. It is all about trust, and the more trusting the people are whom we lead about us and about our intentions of not leaving them behind and of taking them with us, the more we are able to do with technology in general and with AI in particular. There are many notions in terms of where AI is headed towards. Some feel that AI will become at one point in time like electricity, which is ubiquitous everywhere, infused in everything that we do, and becomes a commodity. Some feel that if left uncontrolled, artificial intelligence can actually grow into this monstrous entity, which can actually which could actually lead to singularity, which means machines taking over the planet from us humans. Those are the two extremes, but I think the reality will always be somewhere in between. All we need to ensure as leaders is that we are, number one, aware. We continuously learn, and we continuously talk to our teams about what we are learning and where we are deploying human intelligence and where we want to deploy artificial intelligence. So this is a quick why should you care and what should you care about from a artificial intelligence perspective within the leadership context. So what next, you may ask. So it is important that we decide and take the leap, which means that we try out some of the algorithms, we explore and try and understand and learn what artificial intelligence algorithms around us, what can they do for us from all those 7 things that as leaders we are expected to do, and figure out and try some of them by taking a leap and exploring and working with some of them. Now, and if you really want to take a leap and go deeper in this topic, because you think it is going to be important for you and your career going forward, that you not only understand and use these individually for your productivity, but also as a leader and how it will impact your leadership overall within your organization and on your team, then I would invite you to join me for a one-on-one leadership coaching when it comes to leveraging both the leadership skills as well as how and where you can deploy artificial intelligence within your leadership practice, so that you become a much better leader and a much more effective leader, one who can actually deliver results significantly faster, cheaper, and better. So you can scan the QR code and you can set up a 30-minute conversation with me, and we can explore whether one-on-one coaching would work and would benefit for you with me. So with that, I'd like to stop my presentation and open up if you have any questions that you may want to ask me now. I'll stop the recording.